Uh, if we are ready, I can start. Is that okay?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, okay. Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much, Maurizio, for the invitation and your kind words. We have many years that we have been, that we met, and I also visited Costa Rica when Maurizio invited me, and I was very happy to meet his family that I already knew, and his colleagues. Everybody was so kind to me, and I have the best of memories from my visit to Costa Rica. Well, now I'm getting older, and it's not easy to move to Costa Rica. So I accepted the invitation for this online presentation, despite the difficulties that there are. I hope things will run smoothly, and I will not create much trouble you to follow my presentation. So the title of my presentation is Metacognition from a Self-Regulated Learning Perspective. The point of interest is to make sense of the complexity of metacognitive phenomena. As you are all working with metacognition, you already know the difficulties to study metacognition and bring to the fore the mechanism behind the different manifestations of metacognition. So I will try today to show that some of the metacognitive phenomena can be explained by their interactions with motivation and affect. So that will be the major point I'm going to do. So I will start from the beginning, okay, what metacognition is. And I will also bring to the fore, as I said, phenomena that go beyond the relations of metacognition with cognition. Specifically, I will refer to the enriched model of metacognition that I proposed in 2008. And I will try to show that in that model, there were already the seeds of more advanced theorizing about metacognition and the various relations with motivation and affect. So in 2011, I proposed another model, the metacognitive and affective model of self-regulated learning. And I hope I will not confuse you with models, one model, second model, and so on. I will try to show you the process through which my thinking developed, and I started my theorizing. So at the end, I will discuss the prospects of metacognition research in the years to come from my point of view, as I said. Now, the construct of metacognition. We all agree, I hope, that metacognition is the monitoring and control of cognition, and it is critical for the regulation of cognition. The notion of metacognition has been introduced by Flavel, 1976, 1979, and theoretically justified by Nelson in 1994 with Narens, and 1996 in American Psychologist. Now, since it was the notion of metacognition was introduced, it has sparked research in developmental psychology. Flavel was developmental psychologist. So his research led to a significant discoveries in developmental psychology, like theory of mind, use of strategies in various ages of children, and so on. It also initiated work in cognitive psychology, mainly in meta-memory, in the tradition of meta-memory research, also in educational psychology, where they were mainly working with metacognitive knowledge and metacognitive strategy use. But also I can see in more recent years work in clinical psychology, where they see metacognition about the ideas or beliefs people have about mental problems. And of course, there is the long tradition of individual differences in metacognitive ability. Now, I will try, as I said, to show you the development of my thinking. So, as I was aware of Flavel's conception of metacognition, and I guess you also know that he distinguishes three different facets of metacognition. One is metacognitive experiences, that is feelings, judgments, metacognitive knowledge, which is declarative memory knowledge about cognition, about persons, the self, the tasks, the strategies, and the goals. And metacognitive strategies, also the term used is metacognitive skills, which is procedural knowledge. You may use metacognitive strategies without necessarily using metacognitive knowledge. So this is what Flavel proposed, and that was okay for educational psychology. But from the meta-memory point of view, we had another model, and that was Nelson's model, which is very critical because it shows exactly the mechanism. That is metacognition, it's at the meta level that is about, okay, the cognition that is the object level. And Nelson was based his argument on Tarski's, the philosopher, ideas. So now we had, the theoretical basis to accept the notion of metacognition. And then, of course, you have to put the two together. How does the Nelson's model go with Flavel's ideas about metacognition? So I proposed in 2008 the enriched model of metacognition to bring together the two traditions of research. So the model I proposed is now shown, and it shows that there is the object level. Okay, I'm following the levels according to Nelson, only there is one more level. But anyway, the idea is based on Nelson's object level and meta level. But what I did was put into it each level what will be the manifestations of metacognition in each level. Okay, so starting with the object level, you can see that I have also included affect and affect regulation in the same sense as cognition and metacognition, because you need to regulate your cognition and your affect. And there was already in the 70s a lot of evidence showing that cognition could have an impact on emotions and vice versa. So that's why I have put the two systems, the cognitive and the affective, and an interrelation between them. They interact at the object level, okay? And then you go to the meta level. The meta level is the one that includes metacognitive experiences, particularly feelings, judgments, metacognitive knowledge, and metacognitive skills. I call that level personal level awareness because it is what the person experiences, okay, about cognitive processing. And then I added another level, the meta-meta level, which is a second order metacognitive judgment. Nelson had already claimed that there could be more meta levels. But what I said was that at that level, you cannot have feelings. You observe and you reflect on your own metacognitive experiences and on indicators of metacognitive experiences of other persons. When you collaborate with someone, when you are a teacher and you are teaching, when you are talking to your friends, you are getting cues from the other about his or her cognitive state. So I call that the social level, okay? And so you have their metacognitive judgments about the other's metacognition, metacognitive knowledge, and metacognitive skills. What are the innovations of that model? It extends Nelson's models by putting the contents. I introduced the meta-meta level, and I made a differentiation between person's awareness, person level, and the social level of metacognition. Now, what are the implications of this model? As you already saw, at the object level, there were two systems, the cognitive and the affective, each with its own regulation. Now, the question is, at the next levels, the meta level and the meta-meta level, there was no mentioning of affects. What does it mean? Why did I do that? Well, actually, at that time, there was no research evidence showing interactions between metacognition and affect. Although we had evidence for the cognitive or the object level, we didn't have any evidence at that time that there are interactions between metacognition and affects. And of course, there was no meta-meta level in research up to that point. So the first question or the first implication of the model I proposed has to do, are there relations between metacognition and affect at the meta and meta-meta level? I will answer the questions later on. So let's go to the another implication. The meta-meta level represents, as I said, second order metacognitive judgments about one's own metacognition and judgments about the other people's metacognition. Where do we find this level of functioning? I can understand that people may reflect on their metacognitive experiences, but where do we see that people also are aware of what the others are feeling at a metacognitive level? So I think it's very easy to answer that. It is in collaborative learning. I'm not talking about everyday relations. I'm talking about collaborative learning where the group has to work together. And how can you progress with your problem solving unless you know what the other understands and what the other is thinking? And a lot of what is going on is not explicit. You know, you don't say, now I feel this way and now I feel differently and so on. You just don't do that. Your face and your body movements show what you are feeling at that moment. Also, in the classroom, teachers, they have to adapt their teaching to what the students understand, how they feel, why they react in a certain way and not in another way. So teachers have to be, and they are, very sensitive to such cues, okay? And the students, I guess, but not the very young ones, I guess the older ones, they are also sensitive to the cues by the teacher. So it is quite evident that in situations where we have interacting persons, there are the metacognitive experiences are very critical for their collaboration and further thinking. Another now implication of the model has to do with the meta level and the relations to the task. The meta level, that is the metacognitive experience or judgments, they have to do with the task you are processing. They are specific to the task. They are monitoring the fluency of processing. They are monitoring interruptions in processing. So they give you information, very critical information about what is going on in your mind, not ideas or declarative knowledge, but what is going on in the processing, qualities of processing. So the meta level is very closely related to the task at hand. But if you go to the meta level, then it's not the same, because you are not working on the task, the specific task, but you can more or less talk about different kinds of tasks, different people, how they approach the task, how you in different situations react to the tasks and so on. So it's not specific to the task. When we are talking about the meta level, actually we are talking about person characteristics, ideas or beliefs the person has about tasks. So the question is, what is the nature of meta level and how closely is it related to the task? To answer these questions, I turn to self-regulated learning, not in the sense which is better, metacognition or self-regulated learning. It's not a power game as it was at the beginning, you know, it was like two different ways of looking at things. No, they are not the same. And metacognition can enrich self-regulated learning, and self-regulated learning can give us ideas about metacognition. So I started looking at metacognition through the lens of self-regulated learning. And then I proposed the model, the metacognitive and affective model of self-regulated learning. And I will not show it to you right now, because you are already confused enough, so I will keep it for later on. What I want you to is there a problem with?
We can hear you. No.
No. Is it okay? I hope I can't hear.
Yeah,
So
yes, it's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah.
So what I want you to pay attention to is that I'm using this term subjective experiences. People are sensitive to their subjective experiences, and subjective experiences are not only metacognitive, they can be motivational or affective. So that is how you bring together metacognition, cognition, metacognition, motivation, and affect. Okay, that was the insight behind the model I proposed. So before give you more information about the model, I would like you to consider the following model, the following example. Just consider, imagine students in the classroom while trying to solve a novel mathematical task. You just observe the students. They focus on the task or away from it, okay? They can be very focused or they may just look around. They are searching their memory and they say, yes, I think I can understand, I'm not sure. We did something like that in the past. And they read and reread the problem in order to understand what is it that requires. They also experience metacognitive feelings such as feeling of familiarity. I know or I don't know. I haven't met anything like that in the past. Feeling of difficulty or confidence that they understand. They frown or they smile as they are working on. And they also experience emotions such as interest, anxiety, surprise, and so on. They look around to see what the other students are doing. Why are they doing that? Because they want to see how their metacognitive experiences or their feelings, they match those of the other students. It's like looking for social support for what you are feeling. You use the others to interpret your own experiences. And of course, you may feel excited or exhausted by the effort, feel confident or satisfied with the solution. Now, why did I give you this example? Because I wanted to show to you that metacognition by itself does not suffice to ensure successful learning. Students experience a variety of feelings and self-regulate their cognition in accordance with them, not only on information from metacognition, but all the models of metacognition, they were assuming that cognitive regulation is based on metacognition and only information from metacognition. What I'm saying is, no, they use information also from their subjective experiences regarding motivation and affect. And students don't use only metacognitive strategies. They may use their metacognitive experiences to use a motivational strategy. For example, if they are not confident or they feel exhausted by effort, they give up. This is motivational strategy, okay? Or they are asking for help, motivational strategy. It isn't cognitive. So I hope I made clear from the example that metacognition goes hand in hand with motivation and affect. So let's go back now to the open questions from the enriched model of metacognition. The first question was about the relations between metacognition and affect. In recent years, there is evidence in metamemory research about what is called emotion salience effect. People believe, or they judgment of learning, that they will remember or that they will learn more easily a list of words, of emotional words, than a list of neutral words. Is that so? No. Memory performance is the same. But people make a difference in their prediction. Another line of research regards emotions as cues for judgments of comprehension. Now, suppose you are a student and you watch your teacher who is observing what you are doing, and you see the teacher smiling. What do you infer from that? You infer that you are doing well and your confidence goes up. Okay? So your judgment about comprehension depends on how you perceive the cues from other people. There is another line of research in metamemory, which is by Finn, which is called ending on a high note, or there are other names they are used. But anyway, at the beginning, it was ending on a high note. What did she mean? She gave students a list of 10 problems, difficult lists, and then the same list plus another 5 items which were easier to remember. And then she was asking them, which of the 2 lists would you prefer to work on in the future, okay, if you try again? And students said they preferred the long list, which means much more effort, it means much more time. So why did they do that? Because affectively, the long list was more positive. They were more, they felt they could do well, so they wanted to work on that. So it's not just the item, the difficulty of the item, it is the combination of the items that also makes a difference. And people prefer to end their study on a high note. And there is also very recent research on metacognition and epistemic emotions. I had started that line of research with a student of mine in 2010, where we were using number series, and it started like 2, 4, 6. So everybody expected that it was ascending by 2. And then there was another number that didn't fit the rule. So obviously there was an interruption in processing. And we were asking if they were surprised and how much difficulty they feel. So there was very high surprise and very high feeling of difficulty. And it was so closely related that it was like, is it the same thing that we are measuring? okay? And then Turutoglu, she created a task in which it looked very difficult. And then she gave the solution, which was very easy. So everybody was surprised. Surprise went up, okay? But difficulty went down because it was easy. So in this way, we showed that they are not surprise and feeling of difficulty. They are related, but they are not the same, okay? So there is evidence, and it's growing day by day, about relations between metacognition and affect. Now, what about metacognition and motivation? There is research from Mill and his collaborators that shows, for instance, there are beliefs about ability as an entity, which means it doesn't change, or incremental theories of ability, which means that ability can change, okay? If you put effort, you can change your ability. Whereas if you have an entity belief, no matter how much you try, you cannot change your ability, right? So they showed that if you give a task that requires effort, those who believe in an entity ability, they make lower judgments of learning. They don't expect to learn it. But those with incremental theories of ability, they expect that they will learn more if they put effort. We also showed with a colleague of mine that metacognitive experiences have an impact on causal attributions like task difficulty, effort, or lack, and so on. And there are effects of metacognitive experiences of self-concept. That is, people build their self-concept and their self-efficacy, not only on confidence, but also how much difficulty they had while they were learning. So even if they do well, this doesn't go to their self-concept because they experience difficulty, okay? Their confidence goes down because they had that difficulty. And we had a longitudinal, small-scale longitudinal study that we showed that also. So what about individual, meta-meta level, individual and collaborative learning? Of course, if it is about yourself, you make a judgment like, oh, that's easy, I would learn it very easily. And then you start working and you realize that you were overconfident. And then you say, oh, yes, sorry, I was very overconfident. No, I'm not going to learn it so easily. So you are correcting your first order judgment. But in the case of peers, as I said, you use the indicators like for the eyes and facial movements and so on as indicators of what the other feels. Now, what happens with teachers and students? Is there evidence about how teachers perceive students' metacognitive experiences? Well, as I said, teachers observe their students and they can say whether they are on the task, if they are absent-minded, if they are having difficulty and so on, right? But are teachers' judgments accurate about how students feel? I had a study on that, and what we found that it was teachers have kind of stereotypical knowledge, like good students don't experience difficulty. Low achieving students, they experience a lot of difficulty. But when we were matching what the teacher said to what the student said, it was quite different, because even good students experience difficulty, and the low performing students, they didn't report difficulty. They didn't realize that it was difficult. So they said, no, I had no difficulty. They were wrong in their solution, but they didn't realize the difficulty, right? So the teacher was totally wrong in the prediction about students' experiences. And well, that might not be so important, but what teachers say, if for a low performing student, they say they don't try. They have difficulty, but they don't try to improve. But a low performing student does not realize any difficulty and don't put effort because they don't feel that it is necessary, right? So it is a problem there. Now, the other open issue I raised was regards the nature of the meta-meta level and the relations with the task. And that goes with research on metacognitive ability. Now, how do we measure metacognitive ability? Usually with questionnaires. If we measure metacognitive ability with questionnaires, we don't measure actual ability, we are measuring beliefs about our ability to do things or how we are doing things. So actually we are measuring person or self-related knowledge about how we behave as metacognitive agents. And moreover, besides the knowledge we have about ourselves, we also have metacognitive knowledge about tasks and goals and strategies, which means that at the meta-meta level, the relation with the task is much more loose than at the meta level. Now, if metacognition then is a person characteristic, that is, as metacognitive knowledge suggests, and it is an individual difference characteristic, how does it contribute to the regulation of cognition? Firstly, through the metacognitive knowledge of the self. Metacognitive knowledge of the self goes hand in hand with self-concept. Okay, so one way to predict how well you will do, it's not depends on your knowledge about yourself and your self-concept. And that takes us to motivation, because their self-efficacy is considered a major motivator. And so metacognitive ability may impact your selection, your persistence, or your selection of strategies through self-efficacy and self-concept, or through memory knowledge about strategies and their efficiency. It's not only that you know there are different strategies to study or learn, it's also that we know that some strategies are better than the others. And people may differ, or students may differ between them about the efficiency of different strategies. And if a student doesn't believe that a strategy is good enough, this means that they will not use it, even if the teacher or the parents or someone else tells them that this is the best strategy to go by. They will not use it. So there is evidence showing that students have also beliefs about strategies and why you use them in different situations. There is a nice metamemory research study that shows that when they were asking students what they will do in order to remember a list after a week, they were rereading the list. But when they asked them, what are you going to do in order not to forget the list, the emphasis was on forgetting, then students changed the strategy in order to help retain the information. When you look at this kind of evidence, you can see that it's not only metacognitive skills like orienting, planning, monitoring the execution and evaluation. That is more the domain-free skills. People and students, they have very specific beliefs about situations and what is best for that situation to learn. Okay, so just another example I have here, that people of my generation believe that if you have something in print, you can read it more easily and you can remember it better, whereas it's different with the younger generation. So there are differences in metacognitive knowledge about the task. And let me say that we don't know much about these differences. This is an important line of research. Okay. So now what is the next step? The next step is to see how the meta-meta level is related to self-regulated learning and how that led to my to the other model, the metacognitive and affective model. First of all, in this model, the MA-SRL, I have cognition on the one hand and metacognition, and affect, motivation, and emotions on the other, each one with their regulation. And then I have the person level characteristics like this metacognitive knowledge or beliefs and so on. And I have the task as different from the processing. So you can see this model now. I hope it's not too confusing. As I said, you can see metacognition and affect, which is what the person experiences. The person experiences both metacognitive experiences and affective experiences. And then you have on the one hand, the cognitive regulation system, monitoring, control, and use of strategies, the affective regulation system, where you regulate your emotions and effort, okay? And then you have the person level, which is what the person brings into the learning situation, what I already have in my memory, or what kinds of beliefs or motivators or affective, person characteristics I have. I will not go into the details because that's quite confusing, but I will just explain a little bit about the model. So we have the person level, the more general, and we have the task which is in each context, which is independent from the person. And we have the task by person level. It's what you are doing as you are learning or solving a problem. And self-regulated learning can be top-down. When you think about it, you plan, you set your goal, you plan, and then you go to the task by person level, you execute, you monitor it, you do any adjustments, and so on. And if it is successful, then that's great. This is what teachers and what we would all like to have. You know, I'm thinking in advance, I am planning my action, so I'm sure it's going to be fine. Unfortunately, it doesn't. So, because things are not going always as planned or as expected. So, if top-down doesn't work, then bottom-up self-regulated learning begins. It begins when top-down self-regulated learning fails, when the task is novel and you cannot plan if you don't understand the situation and what is the problem. Or when during the task processing there are impasses or detection of error, which means I have to start from the beginning. Also, if I am working on a creativity problem, I cannot plan from the beginning and expect to find a certain outcome when I have to come up with something novel that doesn't exist right now. So that is bottom up, right? And then what I'm really stressing forcefully, I must say, is that there is interaction between the different kinds of subjective experiences. So feeling of difficulty may lead to increased effort, but this is a motivational decision, right? It's not metacognitive. So now, what happens with motivation? I must say that this line of research is very recent. I'm excited about it. I haven't done anything on that, but Mill and his collaborators, they have provided very good evidence. And there is a paper on educational psychologists, 2018, where they are talking about meta-motivation. So, monitoring your motivation, what does it involve? It involves monitoring of motivational changes. You start with a problem and you think it is very important, it has very personal value for you. But then as you go on, you realize that you are not interested anymore. Okay, so changes in motivation. You also have experiences about your effort, whether it goes very smoothly or you exert a lot of effort and you feel exhausted. And then you have those meta-motivational feelings. And the use of the term is beautiful and so, I must say, this is what I want you to remember. What are the meta-motivational feelings? And I'm using here confidence and boredom as examples because this is what Mill suggested. Now, confidence for metacognition people is purely metacognitive. But for motivation people, it is related to self-efficacy and to expectancy about your future success or failure. So confidence is not a pure feeling. It isn't just metacognitive. If you work in meta-memory, It's, yeah, it's the percentage of your response being correct, but it's not that, okay? It's much more. Feelings are very complex entities, and they have to be decoded in order to understand their meaning. Boredom is an emotion, right? You can see that people in emotion, they are studying boredom. But boredom, what does it tell you as well about your motivation? That your motivation is very low, that you are not willing to exert effort. That's what boredom says. It gives you information about your motivation. And they also, people have meta-motivational knowledge, like metacognitive knowledge, about the self, task, strategies, and so on. For example, you may have a student who is mastery oriented. He likes or she likes to work on something because it's interesting, because he wants to learn about it, and so on. But when it comes close to the exams, there it is not only if you like it and if you understand things, the importance it's also for grades, what grade you will get. So students change from mastery to performance approach, or even performance avoidance, right? So this means that in order to do that shift, you have to have knowledge about which strategy or which motivation is best for each situation, right? And what about affect? Students and people monitor their how, if they feel pleasantly, if they feel well, if they feel curious, surprised, and I'm using those on purpose because they are epistemic emotions and are very critical for learning. Or you feel anxious, thrilled, and so on, so on. When it comes to the control of motivation, there is a lot of research on that since the beginnings of 2000 by Voltes. And now I think there is consensus about the basic strategies students use to control their motivation, how to increase their motivation, they self-reward or they self-consequencing. You think of the consequences if you don't do that. So students have beliefs and strategies for the control of motivation or the control of effort. Okay, but what about emotions? Now, people from working on emotions, they don't talk about meta emotions. They don't talk about anything like that. You will never hear anything like that from people from emotions. But Norman, Elizabeth Norman has used the term meta emotion, and there is research in emotion where they talk about meta emotion as a second order emotion. That is, I'm angry because I got angry, okay? Second order emotion. So you have an experience about your emotions, right? But also from emotion research, we know that people have ideas about which emotion is best for particular situations, how you should behave, or would you show your emotions or not, depending on the situation. People also have beliefs about themselves. I'm a very, very agitating person, or they have also ideas about how they regulate their emotions. I'm usually not paying attention, or I'm thinking about it and try to reconceptualize the situation, all right? So there is meta-emotional knowledge from this point of view. It is there. What is missing is the label that this is meta-emotional knowledge, right? So when we come to meta-emotion, okay, how do we understand? How do we monitor in our emotions and how we control them? As I said, we have emotions about emotions, and we have judgments about the intensity of emotions and the emotion appropriateness, if what I'm feeling is appropriate for the situation, or changes in emotional states. Okay, I started very sad, but now I'm feeling much better, and so on. So people and students particularly monitor their cognition, their motivation, and their emotions. And there is this meta level, okay? So what about the future of research in metacognition? Of course, there is a lot of lines of research on metacognitive phenomena, and they are bringing up very, very impressive and interesting evidence, okay, about how it functions. But from the self-regulated learning perspective, and as I said about meta-motivation or meta-emotion, there is one basic question for me. Are these meta facets or meta manifestations explained by the same factor, a higher order meta factor? Is there something common behind the different manifestations of meta knowledge or meta motivation and so on, meta emotions? And another question that I find very interesting for the future is whether metacognitive skills, which are supposed to be domain-free, if they can be used to guide control processes for the affective system, that you use metacognitive strategies to control emotion. For emotion people, I guess this is something that would make them crazy. They wouldn't accept it so easily. But just think about it. If I know which emotions are appropriate for a particular situation, do I plan how I will behave there? Do I monitor how I am feeling and what kinds of emotions I'm showing to the others? So I'm planning and I'm monitoring the execution of the planning, and then I evaluate that, okay, I fooled everybody there. I was very happy, but I made it look like a very sad person, you know. And so these are just three questions that I would just think for the future. There is another thing I want you to consider, and that has to do with research in educational psychology and practice. And what I'm having here is a model. If you look at the teacher and the students, each one of them functioning at two levels, the person level and the task by person level. what connects the teacher and the students is the task, right? This is what brings them together. They are working on the same task. But if the teacher is functioning at the person level, you can see the arrow I have used is one way and leading from the teacher to the students. Because the teacher is not interested in what the students understand. They are supposed to understand, they are supposed to work on it. And it is the student's responsibility to learn it, right? I'm doing my job, I'm telling you what you should know, but it is the student's responsibility to learn and work on it, right? So it is one way. But if the teacher works at the task by person level, which means that the teacher has experiences, metacognitive experiences from himself and or herself, and knows how one feels when working on that, what is easy, what is more difficult, and so on, then he can work with the student and monitor the metacognitive experiences of the student and get feedback. So the teacher is teaching the student and the student is giving feedback to the teacher as they are working on the task. So you can see that the MASRL has implications not only for understanding basic phenomena, but also for practice. I would say that, for instance, bring into your mind when the teacher is giving a lecture in the classroom, the teacher is saying what is supposed to, what one is supposed to say. But if they are on tutoring, they are working together. So one is giving feedback, the teacher to the student and the student to the teacher. So they are collaborating on the task. So I guess this is another line for research for the future, okay? So let me conclude. I hope I haven't given you a headache until up to now. So I tried to show the development of my thought and theorizing. But above all, I tried to share with you my enthusiasm, because I'm really enthusiastic. There was a time when interest in metacognition was going down, because what else, what new can there be, right? But if you look at it from a different perspective, you can see there is much more to it. The phenomena are very complex, so it's not over. Metacognition is not over. It's there, and it's going to be in the future as well. So metacognition will have a leading role in our understanding of the human mind and its intricacies. So thank you for your attention. So I guess there can be questions, or have I taken all the time with my presentation?
Yes, I think we have maybe also questions from parents. Thank you very much for this excellent conference. You have a very interesting So, vamos si gustan, podemos empezar con preguntas. Les voy a pedir que si alguien tiene una pregunta, puede subir a hacerlo. También si hay algo para traducción, también. No sé si alguien tiene alguna pregunta. In English or in Spanish? I don't have a good English for how to do this. One important conclusion for the conference, I think that is the flow of the lectures, the metacognition, and the motivation and effect. How to prove the different lecture, the investigations, my question.
I'm not sure I understood the question. I got something like what kind of measures for what?
Dr. Keys, so he's asking if there is evidence the relation between medical background, metacognition itself, and self-regulated learning.
Sorry, I can't.
Está haciendo rebote, por eso se
Haciendo rebote, por eso.
Western.
Sí.
Vale.
A ver, tengo que preguntarle.
Okay. One important relation of the conference is thinkers have to take into account the relation between metacognition and affect and motivation. That's right. I commented because many teachers don't take it into account, and they are only develop the classes, the theoretical classes, not taking into account the motivation and effect of the student. That's correct.
Let me give you a very general answer. I think in metacognition, when we are measuring metacognitive knowledge or strategy use, we rely a lot on self-reports. But if you want to go into the details of the mechanism, you have to do more experimental research. So, because otherwise you cannot see what are the intricacies. I mean, you have to have a more structured and theory-driven kind of experimental research to help you understand. It is different when you are working on meta-motivational knowledge or meta-emotional knowledge. You can use there very well questionnaires, and there is already a lot of evidence. But if you want to understand if meta-emotion, for instance, plays a role in the control of emotions, then you have to have more experimental kind of research. That means that I'm using an intervention or I'm using instructions in order to favor one kind of knowledge versus the other, and see how it affects what the person is doing. So this is all new. What Mill has done is actually measure motivation with classical motivation measures, and he gave them tasks and asked about judgments of learning or confidence, as we do in basic metamemory research. So he combined two different lines of research, two different kinds of measures: person level with questionnaires on motivation, and metacognitive experience and judgments about the task. So I think it's a challenge for the future to come up with tasks that will be able to separate but also bring together the various phenomena. I hope I gave you some idea. I'm not sure if that was the question, but I tried to explain my thinking. Okay.
Dr. Please, Dr. Please, yes. Well, thank you very much. We are very honored to have you here today. One of the things I want to mention is that the International Group on Metacognition is very interdisciplinary. We have neuropsychologists, we have clinicians, we have people working on meta production, meta comprehension, and reading. And I was just having a conversation with Dr. Ruby Vargas, who is a nurse herself. She runs the simulation center at her university. And so she was mentioning, how we can leverage the work that you have discussed today on how, as nursing students, process, all of these things, both affect, cognition, skills, knowledge, while they're learning, right, and collaborating in this simulation and clinical settings. So, like you mentioned, we're all super excited about it. Can you hear it?
I'm sorry again. I couldn't understand much of what you said. I really can't answer because I'm not sure I understood the question.
No worries.
So sorry about that.
Sí.
Muchísimas gracias. También tal vez podemos enviarle preguntas humanitarias para el profesor. Vamos a estar ahí. Thank you very much, dear leaders. Very appreciative presentation. Profesor, para poder,
I thank you very much for the opportunity to present my work and share with you some ideas which might be worthwhile or not. That is up to you to prove whether it is something worth pursuing. Okay, so that's I think the value of research. That's the value of what we are doing. We are working to understand the phenomena. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Vamos a ir a la parte de abajo. Muchísimas gracias. Thank you very much.
Thank you, bye-bye. Thank you very much, thank you.
Yes.